computer. All right, it's recording. Here we go. Table Talk Radio season 2. That's what we're doing.
A radio show that confesses Christ
without confusing the law and the gospel.
A radio show that takes Scripture seriously
without taking ourselves so seriously.
You're listening to
Table Talk Radio.
I like how he ran in the room thinking that you accidentally articulated baptism incorrectly. Like, wait a minute, you're mistaken.
He said, you sound like a heretic.
Right? Yeah. It wasn't like, boy, they must be playing a game where they're articulating someone else's belief. It was, I think Pastor Wolfmueller is off his rocker.
I'm a little bit disturbed that you think that I would actually teach that about baptism, Pastor Fleming.
And it's so deserved to be crunched. I mean, mega crunch. So, you guys put the mega crunch on the song. That would be awesome. Keep preaching the word, pastors. Keep it mediocre and hilarious.
Table Talk Radio Season 2 back in style.
Why Season 2? Because we couldn't remember what episode we were on, so we're like, let's just start a new season. Season 1 lasted 10 years. Probably next episode will be Season 3 because we're going to lose track again. We got the visual gags now too. We got to figure that out. Look how my Luther bobblehead looks like he's it's kind of, the spring is kind of broken, so he just looks like he's indifferent, you know.
So for those listening, what's the new feature of Season 2?
We're trying to do this because I like the YouTubes, remember? And so we're saying, hey, what if we do a video/audio podcast and see how that works and see what that looks like? So you can watch this on YouTube, on the YouTubes, or you can listen on the podcast while they let us go on.
Now, am I understanding right that this was by popular demand because everyone was saying, look, we see you all the time, but where's Evan on the YouTube?
That's
and so
right.
And just by sheer demand of all of our listeners,
balance out the beauty. Like, we know you're the brains of the operation, but we want to see the beauty of you.
That's right.
And your luxurious radio studio there in the back.
Oh yeah, coming to you from the studios of KRRC in Rogue. This is actually the back room of Club Rogue River. You don't realize that, but
that's the DJ box. You can also see in my background all the books I ordered by the foot for my Zoom background to create the illusion of intelligence. That's a thing. Did you know? So this is I saw on the Wall Street Journal or something that you can go this warehouse of a bookseller, and you don't buy the books you want. You just buy them by the foot, and you can buy green books or white books or gray books or old books to make you look smart. You know, and so that's how I got that.
How much was the book that looks like yours?
Did you see that subtle product placement?
Yeah.
Take They Are Life. Oh, I forgot to turn the light on. Look, it illuminates.
Oh goodness. I'm not sure that's much different. But this is, other than our. It's amazing I've made it through the coronavirus pandemic without, being addicted to Zoom, unlike some people. But I'm still trying to figure out like the backgrounds. It looks like I'm in the Bahamas or something like that. If I could figure that out, then would be set.
We got to work on it. All right. So here's what I think we're going to do this today, right? We're going to play buzzwords, theological buzzwords. Then we're going to do CNN or Babylon B. We got a great email like a year ago. Some great stuff, and maybe some of that news will be relevant enough for us to grab onto it and do some 10 Commandments in the news. And then if we run out of time, then we're going to do what's in your pastor's library. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
It was just my buzzword: sacrifice. Boom.
Nice.
Not only am I saying it to you, I'm showing you how to spell it. Now let me read to you from today's edition of the Treasury of Daily Prayer. You know that Treasury of Daily Prayer? Today is apparently St. John Chrysostom Day, the golden lip. Is that what that means? Chrysostom? Golden lip? Golden mouth, maybe.
Mouth, yeah.
He was this great, it has a great little text from him. It says, so truly, so inexpressibly great are the benefits that God has bestowed upon us. He sacrificed himself for his enemies who hated and rejected him. What no one would do for friends, for brothers, for children, that the Lord has done for his servants. A Lord not himself such as one of his servants, but God for men not deserving. Whew, that's great. So this idea of Jesus on the cross is the sacrifice, the final sacrifice to take away sins and bear our iniquities and so forth and so on. So he sacrificed himself for his enemies. Beautiful text.
That's great. My theological buzzword for you, which you'll have to be an auditory learner to get, is the word angel. Now, I have a pop quiz for you, Pastor Wolfmueller. True or false? Jesus is an angel.
Oh, that's a tricky question. I'll do it for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. False. I'll bite.
Oh, false. Well, I mean, there's different senses of the word angel, right? This is the trick. So there's an angel, ontologically, I guess you could say, an angel being a created being. So we know that God has created immaterial beings, but yet real nonetheless, who are servants of God and serve Him and serve us according to His bidding, and that would be a created angel. And so that's one sense of angel. But we could also talk about Jesus being an angel in the sense that angel means messenger. And so in the way that Jesus is a messenger who brings us the good news, we're in the season of Epiphany where God is enlightening or manifesting himself to us through the person of Jesus, then he is in that sense a messenger. So that way we can talk about Jesus being an angel. So you see this meaning perhaps in the book of Revelation when we have the letters to the seven churches. And are they calling you angel there at St. Paul yet? Have you worked that in?
They haven't. They want to all the time, and I said no, please.
Yeah, but each letter to like Philadelphia and Sardis and all these places, it goes to the angel at Philadelphia, and we think that possibly that could be referring to the pastor, the messenger at that place. So, angel has maybe two different meanings.
Oh, that's a nice way to say it. So angel is the word angel refers to an office, and it can be a human person filling that office, or it can be a spirit. What's what we normally mean, the spirits that fulfill that office. And also Jesus is called in the Old Testament, the angel of the Lord and so forth. Probably some people think that's what Luther means when in the morning and evening prayer, let your holy angel be with me. So it refers to the holy angel in singular. Could be referring to the guardian angel, but it could be also referring to Christ. So that's a dispute there as well. But so angels, when we talk specifically about what we normally mean by angels, the language that the Bible uses spirit. That so spirit refers to their being, angel refers to their office.
Very good. All right. So we're going to do some CNN or Babylon Bee. Now, for those who maybe don't know, Babylon Bee is a satire news site. They make up fake news stories. They're a bit comical. It's maybe a commentary. There's some games that we play on Table Talk Radio that just the fact that we play them is making the point more than teaching discernment like a lot of our games are. And I think what this one is just showing how crazy the world is today that we live in. That there may be a debate whether a headline is actually news from an agency like, say, CNN. Or whether it's satire, it's meant to be comical, it's meant to be funny, like Babylon Bee. So that's the whole trick in this game.
I think I might get you on some of these. Okay.
You got me last time we played this. So, all right, let's hear it.
Okay, here's the first one. CNN or Babylon Bee. David Axelrod. I woke up this morning as an alternative fact.
David Axelrod. I don't know who that is. Is that
David Axelrod? Is he was an advisor in President Obama's administration.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm
chief strategist. Apparently, I'm looking here. Chief strategist for the 2008 and 2012 Obama campaigns.
Okay. I mean, that sounds pretty official. That might be real news, but I'm going to say that's probably from the Babylon Bee.
Well, let's just take a screen share here. CNN, David Axelrod. I woke up this morning as an alternative fact.
That's unreal.
In justifying the appointment of Steve Bannon, the president's chief strategist, to the National Security Council, Trump spokesman Sean Spicer cited my role in the Obama White House as a precedent. Spicer said Press Secretary Robert Gibbs and I attended classified National Security Council meetings all the time. That's simply not true. CNN 0, Babylon B 1, Evan 0. Let's talk about that. Just alternative fact and the idea of fake news. And the 10 Commandments on that. How the 10 Commandments fit in, and any thoughts on that? On that thing.
Well, this is probably the problem we're seeing. There's been a lot of talk, especially the last 4 years, about fake news. And one of the dynamics that we see playing into all of this is the idea that the cable news network. So it used to be that your ordinary networks would have nightly news. So you would be watching the news, and then Wheel of Fortune would come on. but then with cable television came the advent of these cable news networks where it's news 24/7. Now, that means the only thing that it has to draw and pull attention of its audience is news. And you become now competitive for eyeballs to do that. Now, you have to make then the news appealing as possible in order to keep an audience to your network if you're a 24-hour news network. So the cable news networks became much more commentary than it is journalistic, and trying to hold people's attention based upon their spin on the news rather than a reporting of an unbiased, objective journalist. So let's pick up where we left off there after this break. We still do breaks on season 2, huh?
Wow, I guess so.
Very cool. What do we do on video during the breaks? We'll find out.
Yeah.
Just a second. I'll be right back.
Hadn't thought that far ahead.
You gonna dance or something? Maybe you shouldn't dance.
Busting the myth that practice makes perfect. You're listening to Table Talk Radio.
Boom. Yeah.
Miss those bumps, huh?
Yep,
Boy, it's
I
good
do.
to get back in the swing of things.
DJ Quads.
So before the break, we were talking about how the whole cable news network thing has changed the way that news is even reported.
Yeah.
And I remember when I forget which election year it was, but when Mitt Romney was running against Obama, and
2012, or was he first or second? I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
John Kerry was in there. I think John Kerry was against Obama first, and then Mitt Romney. So that must have been 2012. My guess.
McCain, was it McCain?
McCain, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So anyway, they asked Mitt Romney, what's the difference between politics today and politics before? And one of the things that he said that I thought was a really interesting comment is that it used to be that we would all get the facts of the news from the same source. So whether you're Republican or Democrat, left or right, you'd go home and watch the news and learn what the facts were, and then you would form differing opinions based upon those facts. But now, whether you have certain political views, you go to the source that agrees with your views already to get the news, the facts of the news. So now no one's actually even coming across the same facts, and I think that's one of the things that we're seeing with the cable news networks is that you're kind of pandering to your audience again to keep their eyeballs, to sell advertising, and there isn't the same standard of journalistic integrity to say I'm going to approach this without bias at least as much as I can. It seems to me that that's not even an effort, and I think one of this CNN headline is sort of addressing that. What do you think?
I think so too. When I was just looking for this, I just joined the G.K. Chesterton Society. You get their magazine the other day, and I was reading this article about how Chesterton talks about how we think that the more national things become, the more inclusive they become. This is Chesterton, 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he was making the comment, the opposite happens, is the broader you get, then the more you start to narrow into little groups of people that agree with you. And this has certainly been the phenomenon of cable news and then the internet. And so you think that, the broader and the freer flow of information will mean that's a good thing. True enough. And yet the problem is there's so much that you just have to, you go into silos. And here's the group that agrees with me. And so we find ourselves sort of in this little vortex. And I've been in conversations with people, and we were, for example, when President Trump was president, we were talking about, and it's like there's two totally different stories that are being told about the same events, the same conversations, the same facts. It's an amazing thing, and not necessarily helpful. It's good to remember that the Lord puts us in a family and in a local church, because you gotta be able to argue with people. You gotta be able to talk to people who think differently than you do. And those local things force those conversations. If you just go online, you can find 1 million people that agree with you, and that's maybe not so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting point, how it applies to theology. You know, here we are doing a Lutheran theological podcast for, listeners all over the world. You know, we have people all over the world downloading it. And we've rejoiced to see how it's been received all over the world. You know, I mean, so you throw out a online event, and maybe you get 500, 1,000 people watching what you're doing, 2,000. I mean, I to be honest haven't looked at our stats for a long time, but I think at some point we were averaging around 6,000-7,000 listeners on a weekly basis. So if you think about, like, if I in Rogue River, Oregon were to hold a conference, I would not get 7,000 people come to the conference to hear you and me talk. But you cast it out to the net of the world, and you get, and that's a great thing. When there's a lot of benefit to that. I wonder though if it comes at the risk though, is if I'm not holding that conference in Rogue River, Oregon, maybe I'm not bumping into the people that I would otherwise. That sort of maybe is satisfactory, that like, hey, look at the thousands of people we're appealing to, and if in doing so we would avoid the local interest and not trying to engage people, my neighbor that lives right next to me.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And so we got to try to live locally. The other stuff becomes of kind of secondary benefit, So if Table Talk Radio goes away, sometimes if it, like a cockroach, we're able to finally stomp it out. Or if the internet goes down or whatever, that's okay. That's going to be okay. Now, how do we take advantage of these things? Is because the niche can thrive when you have a big enough kind of pool in which you can pull people who have various different interests in. That's been the kind of the blessing of the internet, but it's also a danger, because now we all get niched, So you can go online and just talk to confessional Lutherans all the time, Yeah. And that's and you forget that not everybody thinks that way. So that's the danger.
Now I have to ask now, because I haven't talked to you much recently. You're off social media?
Yeah. I didn't want you to find that out.
Tell me why. I mean, you are like Mr. Social Media. So I'm begging to know, what was the thing that made you say, I need to get off this?
When Twitter canceled Trump, I said, whoa. It made me step back. But I'm not, I got a handful of, I probably have 10 sort of blurry impulse reasons for kind of, I'm silent on Facebook, silent. I didn't cancel that stuff because there's some value. The Facebook maxes out your friends at 5,000 apparently. So I have 5,000 friends, like 1,000 people.
The max? What about Kurt Cameron?
He went over to a page. So once you get to a page, you can have as many fans as you want.
I see.
Which is, I thought that was obnoxious. It's obnoxious anyway to have 5,000 friends. Carrie's like, wow, you should invite them for dinner. But when Twitter canceled Trump, and then Facebook, and then even YouTube, my own YouTube, I thought this is really, because you wonder where the persecution is going to come from, right? Is it going to come from the state, or is it going to come from big tech? And now we know. I mean, maybe both, both things can be true at the same time, but now we know who really thinks that they have the upper hand is big tech. And so the manipulation of the conversation is not helpful. So here's one thing. I mean, this is one of the nice things about a face-to-face conversation is that your conscience is constantly reading the reaction of the people who are listening to you. And so you can say something, and then you can see if they're surprised or if they love it. Then you can press further, or you have to support your argument or whatever. You can adjust. Yeah. All of that is gone on social media. With the result is that you're half the time in a fight that you didn't even intend to be in. So the medium manipulates the conversation in that way. A lot of people are like, well, hey, you're off of Facebook. Come over to MeWe. Apparently there's a bunch of Lutherans over on the MeWe. But I think the whole thing corrupts conversation. And what the problem is, it makes it easy. But two things happen. If it's that easy to communicate. So I noticed this the other day, because I think I'm going to start a new series on issues, etc. What I wish my family knew about the Lutheran view of closed communion or baptism or whatever. So I need topics on that. So it'd be so easy to just go on Facebook and say, hey, new series, what are your ideas? And poof, there's 300 ideas right there. Boom. You could just crowdsource all this stuff. It's great for that. That was easy. The problem is, if it's easy, it's cheap, so the availability of people's opinions on the internet it's a supply and demand. The supply is so high that there's no demand for it. And the ease of communication there, I think, is, that's the problem that I want to wrestle with. I want to know how to, you and I are both interested in this too. We want to know, how do you communicate the gospel to people who do not know it? We always want to speak the kindness of the Lord Jesus to people who haven't heard, who are not Christian, who are not Lutheran or whatever. And the idea, social media says, hey, come here and use us, and it's an easy way to do it. But I want to think about it more. I think there's hard ways to communicate, difficult ways to communicate, but better ways to communicate. And so pulling off of Facebook now forces me to ask that question. So if I want to say something, like this morning, I took a picture of that John Chrysostom quote. And normally I would post it on Facebook and Instagram, and to go and edify. I took the picture and I'm like, oh, I don't have those platforms now. So how can I communicate this? And it forces that. So the question forces the innovation. My dad always said that an empty stomach is a creative mind, because and so I wanted to empty. In some ways, it's a fasting, so I can think better how to communicate. And so I put a lot more attention on the website, thinking more about podcasts, and table talk, and the YouTube stuff, and these sorts of other things. So kind of that hunger I wanted that to force the creativity.
Well, I mean, it took 10 years, but I'm glad you finally came around to seeing things the way I do.
Oh, that's what I think I said on the post when I said, away from social media, don't tell Evan.
At last. I mean, I'm such a trendsetter. It just takes a while for it to catch on,
True enough. True enough.
But, I want to go back to what you said about, Twitter and all these accounts, deleting accounts. And we're not just talking about someone, who's like a conspiracy theorist who's drawing up all this stuff. Well, they have the right to say those things too. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but we're talking about the president of the United States of America. Now, do you know what kind of power we're giving to these companies who can silence, who can stop the president of the United States from speaking to the people?
Mm-hmm.
So that is an amazing amount of power that we've granted these companies.
Mm-hmm.
And it should concern us that I like the way you put it, that the conversation is being manipulated. If someone has a differing perspective than I do, I want them to be able to say it, number one, and two, say the reasons that they believe the thing, so that I can know whether what I think is wrong or if I need to rethink it. So
right.
We should get back to this game after the break.
It's a break already? Man,
I'm tired. Are you tired?
Talk radio listeners, does it take to change a light bulb? You'll probably have to settle for one.
That joke never gets old. Boom! Recording again.
You were talking at the break how you're reviving the art of writing letters. I don't mean like typing out a letter.
Yeah.
You took a pen and you actually did you have a hard time finding envelopes?
No.
Are those still a thing?
I got a thing. Look, I want to see him. Here my. Pew, pew.
Jeez. At least now I know when you're off mic. Before it was just like, where'd he go?
Yeah, I know.
I
know. This is I can't play, Slitherio and all these games on my phone while we record it. I got this up here. Stationary. Thank you. Stamps. This is my box.
Nice.
Someone sent like a turkey. Sent like a turkey soup when I got sick, and it came in this box. I was like, that's kind of a cool box.
Yeah. So I think I'll use that for my writing endeavors.
Yes, that's right.
Anyway, dude, he was really
For
laughing
my
about being a trendsetter is the Amish. They're like, you guys, we tried telling you. One day you'll be writing letters again. You just wait.
There's something about I'm thinking about this more that this is sort of driving me back to I might write a book, thinking about I don't know if it'll be helpful or not, but anyway.
Yeah, we've been for the reading of scripture, we've been using scrolls. It's really nice. We get away from the technology of bound books and we just use a scroll to read the text. So you might try that.
Yeah.
So papyrus, we had it done.
It is a curious thing, is it not, to say how do we communicate in these days where the public square is privately owned?
Truth be told, you not utilizing Facebook doesn't make a difference. Sorry. In the sense that, big tech canceled Trump and is silencing one side of the conversation. A bunch of people even closing their accounts probably doesn't make a difference. The question is it going to hit their bottom line? And we have seen, I think Twitter was down something like 14% in their stock since canceling the president. I don't know what Facebook is, but that's where it's really going to matter when they start seeing their stock plummet from these things. And that's what we have to really see. So whether Brian Wolfmueller is on Facebook or not does not, Mark Zuckerberg is like, no,
it is a crazy thing, isn't it? Right. Is that like the worst thing? They're like, you canceled Trump. Well, I'm going to cancel myself.
Right.
It's because I want, the reason is I want to just think about the problem. That's what it forces me to think about the problem. It's an inconvenience. It's like a string around your finger, it forces, but it's really funny how the things that Facebook has done to try to get me back. So I started to get emails from Facebook about, this person updated their stat or whatever. And I'm like, what? And I blocked the email, and then I started getting text. They started texting me.
Interesting.
Like, dear Brian,
there's a documentary about that on Netflix.
Yeah.
What's it called?
The Social Dilemma. I saw that, and so now I'm watching it in real time, and I'm getting all these like updates from Twitter and LinkedIn and what.
Right.
Anyway,
I mean, to be sure, if there was a mass exodus, it would certainly make a difference. But I'm just saying that, so we joked about the Amish, and the whole thing the Amish did is they said we're not engaging in technology, and you have to wonder, are they even then players in the conversation? Then are we? So that's the dilemma that we have, is that we want to be conscious of the ways that we're engaging the world. To our own demise, perhaps. At the same time, if we just remove ourselves completely, are we even contributing to the conversation?
Yeah. How about this as an interesting experiment? So I wrote, away from social media, I wrote a blog post about it, and I post stuff. Everything sort of filters into the blog, but I haven't been paying. I don't think I'd had a comment on a blog post in 2 years, and I wrote that one, and I probably had 50 people comment on the post. And I just wonder if everyone's like, oh, well, we can't respond there. We'll go over here. And that's actually nice, because I have a little bit of control over that, Anyway,
Interesting.
and I'm focusing on the Wednesday whatnot. I want to focus though on this game. I'm ready for another headline.
Okay, let's
CNN
do
or
it.
Babylon B. Ready?
Yep.
Now, you think I did CNN, so I should switch to Babylon B. So that would be the logical choice for me to do. To try, you can't do rock 2 times in a row. But now,
Yeah,
because I know that.
But this is double reverse psychology. I know how this works.
But I might do triple reverse. So you might think I might stick with CNN. So if I. Okay. So here it is. Here's the headline. Marge Simpson responds to Trump advisor's Kamala Harris comparison.
If that's CNN, I quit. So I'm going to go with Babylon B.
Let's just check it out. The screen share here. Marge, CNN.
I'm done.
Oh, politics have really gotten serious when a beloved but fictional animated character feels compelled to defend herself against a real-world slight. Jenna Ellis, Trump campaign advisor and lawyer, recently trolled presumptive Democrat vice president nominee Kamala Harris by saying her voice sounded like the character of Marge Simpson on the long-running animated series The Simpsons. On Friday, the show's verified Twitter account tweeted a video of Marge's response.
No, brother.
I don't usually get into politics, says Marge Simpson, but the president's senior advisor, Jenna Ellis, just said Kamala Harris sounds like me, the character said, explaining that Lisa, one of the children in the show, told her. Lisa said she doesn't mean it as a compliment.
I maybe the phrase came out first somewhere else, but the first time I heard the phrase was from Hans Feeney when he was writing for a Federalist article, and he talked about outrage addiction.
Yeah,
and that there's actually a chemical reaction going on in your brain when you're outraged, and it becomes an addiction like anything else. So, like we look at our phones, look at the latest news feed just to see what we're outraged about now because we need that fix.
Right.
And someone being upset because they said a political figure's voice sounds like a cartoon character, being something that could make it to a legitimate, well, I should say legitimate, but a news agency, an article written about this. I guess that's my hit for the day. I'm good.
It is. I mean, we look at our phones and we say, "What do you want from me? Anger, fear? And the internet says, yeah, that's what I want. What about hilarity? That's our role.
Yeah, that's right. We're providing that addiction.
Here's another one.
Okay, I'm bound to get one. I'm 0 for 2.
Men's Health magazine celebrates body positivity with first obese cover model.
Oh man, I think this is one where I'm playing off of your psychology a little bit, because I doubt you'd go 3 in a row CNN. I really don't think you would. But see, I think this could legitimately be a CNN piece, because this is part of the cultural conversation, and that's what makes Babylon B so funny, is because it picks up on some of the conversations going on and sort of exploits them to for their humor. So, but I think this is Babylon B.
You are right.
At least I got one right.
Chip O'Doyle, world's first body positive trainer. 10 ways to feel better about yourself without exercising. Dismantling traditional views of health and fitness. In a move being hailed as progressive win for men everywhere, Men's Health magazine encouraged body positivity by introducing the world's first fat-positive fitness model, Chip O'Doyle, in its next issue. You just hate to be the guy that they pick for that picture, It's like when they do the news story about child obesity and they show the B-roll, and you're like, hey, I'm on the news.
But
you got one.
But the reason this is part of the conversation, though, I think the phrase that's out there now is like fat shaming.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm. I think there's 2 sides to this. On the one hand, we shouldn't go out and be mean to people, right? We shouldn't intend to just offend people. At the same time, we are so easily offended. I mean, it's fascinating to go back and read like some of Luther's writings, for example, as he's debating Erasmus or somebody like this, and just to see this isn't a commentary on Luther, it's a commentary on how the way people could debate in years past was able to take the blows of what we would just be completely offended by.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we're offended, then there goes that outrage. And so now it's no longer even about an issue. It's about whether so-and-so was offended, or whether someone was offensive, and these kinds of things. And so it completely misses. I mean, we're busy walking on eggshells to not offend anyone, that we can't even say anything anymore. So that there's actually a place without. Are you trying to fat shame Luther by bringing him up?
He could have been on
time?
the cover.
I'm offended that you would even suggest that image during my talk about fat shaming. You see how it goes? But I mean, there should be a way to talk about, a healthy weight and stuff without someone being fat shamed, this kind of a thing. So I don't know. That's my thought on that one.
I know it. That's right. There's problems on this on every direction. We have this culture that, I mean, our picture of beauty is probably ridiculous. The thinness and the kind of body fat percentage that we think is acceptable for someone to be beautiful is an absurdity, and an oppressive absurdity, especially for women. That's a bump.
It is.
Told us more about this on the other side, or are we done?
We got one more.
Okay.
Ask me why, but you've been listening to Table Talk Radio.
Let's do it. I'm recording. Not Joel bringing us in. Look, my battery ran out of my book light.
Oh, I can't even see it anymore. What were you saying before you got cut off? The bump music so rudely interrupted you.
We got the problem of the body image in our culture. This taps in. This is a symptom of our cultural anthropology, which is consumed and consuming. We are internally consumed by defined by our victimhood, and we are externally consumers, defined by our materialism. And that's our basic kind of anthropological stance of our culture. And so the way that we think of our own bodies factors into it. You got to be rail skinny to be beautiful, or that's oppressive on the one side, or nobody can say anything about it. So it's okay to be sort of dangerously hedonistic. You don't have to care about being healthy on the other side. So there's no real sort of just sense of our body is a tool given by God to receive as gifts. That's just kind of lost. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's balance on these things. On the one hand, I think there are people who take health of their body to such an extreme extent that it's almost, I mean, I guess for some people it's a heart issue, but it becomes almost an idolatry of the body, But at the same time, like you said, we are placed here that our bodies are not our own. They've been bought with a price, that we would glorify God in our bodies. So that we would use our bodies in service to our neighbor and to the glory of God. And so just completely abuse our bodies, just to, introduce to our bodies harmful things and to be unhealthy. That's not a Christian's endeavor either. That's why I work out so much. I work out to the glory of God. Hey, I just lost power.
Wow.
What? Sorry.
The power went out. That's good. That's why, the Lord was.
The Lord is like, I'm calling you on that one.
That's. Yeah, you work out. You don't even have the strength to turn on the power switch.
So here's the thing. I'm on battery backup right now. I don't know how much time I have. I think I have about 20 minutes of battery backup, but I'm not sure. Just so you know.
Is it your snowstorm?
No, it's not snowing. It was snowing last night, but it's not now. So I don't know.
Maybe the lights will come back. Well, we'll do what we can. Okay, so I got some more headlines for you. Are you ready? Yeah. This is great. NASA NASA publishes official guide to more inclusive space terms,
Oh man, this could go either
recognizing
way.
the intrinsic racism of things like the Cesar Chavez galaxy. NASA has published this official guide to more inclusive space terms. That's your headline there.
See, this could go either way. I mean, obviously, this is a big thing right now. The whole, gender, again, being offended all the time, but this seems a little out there. No pun intended. I think that I would be surprised that NASA's taken up this kind of work. So I'm going to say this is Babylon B.
Let's just check. You are right, Babylon. Look at these names. It's great. Red Giant is now Indigenous Star of Size. White Dwarf is Racist Little Person. This is so great. Binary Star, first of all, how dare you? This is great. Black Hole, incredibly dense region of color. Milky Way is the soy Milky Way. Spaceship, vehicle of evil human colonizers of Xenomorphs, that must be the alien from the Alien movies, is called Peaceful Protester.
That's great. That is great. Man. But we're seeing this, right? I mean, so the Washington Redskins are changing their logo name. Did you hear about that? Right. I think the more interesting thing on that is because that's been going on for a long time. Like high schools have been having to change their mascots and things like that. In Oregon, they had a big push for that. I think that schools have to have some kind of a sponsorship by a local tribe in order to have Indian or anything related to that in their names in our state. But the magnitude of the Washington Redskins was just kind of resistant to that. But I think that the interesting story about that is not so much whether we should be using or whether it honors the tribes in doing these things, but that the Washington Redskins were basically put under the pressure, the political pressure. So here's maybe this is going to throw at you, Pastor Wolfmueller, real quick. The term right now is cancel culture. If someone doesn't agree with my perspective or even my agenda, then we boycott, we take away their sponsorship, we try to punish them financially in some way or another, so that they will succumb to my perspective. What's your thought on all this cancel culture talk?
It's the currency of shame. So all of us want to fit in. It's just part of our intrinsic humanity. By the way, you look better than ever. I don't know. So speaking of shame, we all want to fit in, and our conscience, by the way, is sensitive to the expectation. We were talking about this earlier, sensitive to all these expectations around us. And so there's this, it's one of the things that we as a Christian church have to think about, because one of the dangers is when we exclude people, like from communion, because of closed communion, that we shame them. We don't want to shame them, but it just sometimes happens that way. And so we're trying to avoid it, but that's the currency of the cancel culture. You are not acceptable to us, and so you're out. So it's in some ways it's like a cultural bullying is what it is, and it hurts. It shouldn't hurt, because our glory. So think about this. I was at Doxology a couple of weeks ago, and Dr. Kleinig was talking about guilt and shame, and comparing the two and contrasting the two. And he says it helps to think about the opposites. So the opposite of guilt is innocence. The opposite of shame is honor. Mm-hmm. And so we become guilty when we break the law. We become shamed when we break the expectations of those around us. Now, here's an interesting thing. When the law of God and man's law and the culture are sort of in relation to each other, then guilt and shame come at the same time. Like if you're not married and you get pregnant 50 years ago, you were guilty and you felt shamed because the cultural expectations and the law of God matched up. But what happens now is we're in the time where those two things are separating. So the law of God over here and the expectations of culture over here. And the result is that we can be shamed by even though we are not guilty. And it's a difficult thing to kind of grasp. I think this is what David is wrestling with in Psalm 4 when he says, "How long, O men, will you turn my glory into shame?" So that one of the ways the devil gets after us is he wants to take the things that we should glorify, we should be glorified in, and turn it into something shameful, and vice versa, something that we should be ashamed of and say, no, boast in it, have a march or whatever to support it, or, that kind of thing. And so it's this reversal of glory and shame. And so cancel culture traffics in that. The result is going to be that we're not going to have as many closed communion problems because it's going to be, again, immoral according to the culture to come to church where people confess Christ as Lord and the 10 Commandments is true. So.
Right. Yeah. There's just the mere association. Like why even darken the doors, those hateful people,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So cancel culture comes back on us now. So
yeah. Great. Well, I think we have time for one more. You got another one there?
Yeah. Let's see here.
We have 2 minutes here.
Telling young people to stay inside during pandemic is like telling them to abstain from sex. Here are some better ideas.
Oh yeah. That's got to be CNN.
It sure is.
Okay, so this argument. So this is the old argument that says, look, if you tell young people to abstain from sex, and they're just going to go have sex, so give them safe ways to do it. And so what actually, I mean, so we've been seeing that argument, and we've been seeing the promotion then of safe sex rather over against abstinence. And what we're seeing is not a decrease of STDs or a decrease of teen pregnancy, things like this. We're actually seeing an increase of those things. And why? Well, because they become more promiscuous. They're taught like this could be done safely, and it's okay. It's morally neutral. So let's just have fun. Just do it in a safe way. But it actually increases the activity, so therefore becomes a problem. And so, I mean, I've always said, could we apply that to any other moral category in the world? Saying, robbing, telling someone to not rob banks is never going to work. So let's just teach them to rob banks in a safe way. Give them unloaded guns, and then it'll be fine. I mean, there's no other moral category that you'd say, telling them to do this is not going to work. So let's just tell them to do it in a safe way. I mean, it just doesn't work. So it does not surprise me that CNN would say, look, you can't tell young people what to do. So just give them different things to do that would conform to the behavior that we want.
They're trying to make this argument with abortion, if you can believe it.
Yeah, real quick, about 10 seconds here, Pastor.
So you make it illegal, and it becomes less frequent. But it's a malicious argument, very malicious argument.
Hey, well, thanks for joining us for season 2 of Table Talk Radio,
where the points are like the knife that Abraham brought to the hill with Isaac.
That's a good one.
Angel stopped the sacrifice.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Table Talk Radio. Table Talk Radio.
Glory.
Please consult your pastor before listening to Table Talk Radio.
Can you believe it?
Heartburn, hair loss, hallucinations.
Oh, man.
With aquatic images,
I thought you've been thinking about that one for a while.
It just came to bam.
Internal combustion.
Now I know no one's feeding it to you on Facebook.
Urge to fight the capitalists on Twitter.
Right. Hey guys, someone give me a points joke. Angel sacrifice. Quick. All right.
All right. You gotta go buy a generator.
Yeah, I need to go.